Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Late Night Yap. This episode is going to be our very last Halloween episode. I am so excited I got to dress up and read spooky, scary stories with you guys. And I hope next year we can also do this and read some scary stories again because I had so much fun dressing up. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it and had fun as well. And I hope that you guys, if you did dress up, please send me your costumes. I would love to see them. Halloween is coming up soon, and then we're going to have the rest of our holidays for the season. And we are definitely going to get into those too. We're going to do Thanksgiving stories, family drama stories, Christmas drama stories. We're going to find them all. We're going to get into them. And if you have any stories you'd like to submit, you can submit them on our subreddit, or you can go ahead and DM them to me on Instagram or TikTok. I will look at both. But we're going to go ahead and get into our stories. When I was 5 or so, my parents purchased a piece of land from our neighbor whose house and yard were behind ours, basically making our backyard much larger. Part of that land included an old stone gazebo that dated back to around 1850. This was around 2000, so it was about 150 years old at the time. My neighbor didn't have a ton of information on the gazebo. It predated her house and ours, which were built in the 1950s and 1930s, respectively. In fact, it predated the entire neighborhood. The oldest houses were generally from the 1910s to 20s, and previously the area had been used as military testing site for mustard gas and other things during World War I. It certainly seems odd that this 400 square foot gazebo was basically in the middle of nowhere at the time and also withstood the development of the surrounding area. Anyways, as soon as my parents bought the land, I started having horrible nightmares every night. In the nightmares, I would be standing in the yard at night and looking into the dark gazebo. I could just barely make out all of these pained faces in the darkness, as if people were sitting on the floor of the gazebo screaming and crying. Sometimes the fireplace in there would be lit and I would see someone jump into it. It freaked my mom out in particular because she was convinced I could sense things. My mom is a legit white-collar professional with no spiritual background. But she still thinks this about me to this day despite my disagreement. The nightmares were vivid though, and it's actually making me feel a little sick as I remember them. All of that said, you asked specifically about Halloween, which is where things get weird. My parents started putting a pool in the yard and decided to change the flooring and odd structure reinforcements to this gazebo. I kid you not, on Halloween itself, the people working on the yard were excavating behind the gazebo and under the flagstone flooring. They found human bones and a few large stones with names carved into them. We did not find any records of the names on the stones. The people that dug up the bones were understandably freaked out. The police came and were basically like, weird. Nothing else ever came out of it but nightmares, and eventually they did stop. That's so strange that, like, you guys found literal bones and the police were just like, that's odd, but what can you do about it? Like, hello? What if there was, like, a serial person running around? Like, come on now. But it also could have been maybe, like, the soldiers, too, from, you guys said World War I, or it could be, like, something they're trying to cover up. That's crazy. I lived on the last street before you came to nothing but undeveloped land / wilderness, whatever. No trees, just sagebrush, but we have been known to have a few rogue animals sometimes. I was 15, female, and coming home from a friend's house. It was about 11 at night, super dark, and not many streetlights. The only streetlight on my street is the one that's in the corner of the street, and then my house is another 6 houses down. Now, there was a little inlet in the corner that went to the wilderness, almost like an old camping site. It essentially made the corner a T. I have to pass the corner light to get home, so I'm approaching the light and I can see it up ahead and I'm not really paying attention, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. At this point, I'm super close to the light. I look around and I spot it. Just outside the light, on the other side of the inlet, is a very large mountain lion. I almost crapped my pants. I'm too close to it to back away. Its eyes were looking straight at me, so I know it saw me, and the only way to safety is through the light. I would have to skirt around the light on my side, and hopefully it stays on the inlet side. I keep walking deliberately and slowly while never taking my eyes off the mountain lion. As I'm walking towards her, she never moves, just watching me. When I get past the point of being able to see her, I keep walking forward and I slowly swivel backwards. As I'm backing up, it takes a step forward, eyes on me like it's going to stalk me. Oh crap. I can't outrun this thing, I just keep stepping backwards slowly. She stays put, but only for so long. Every 5 to 6 of my steps, she takes a step forward. I know she's getting ready to pounce. When I go to the edge of our yard, I turn and dash to the door and ran for my life. Knowing she was going to pick up the chase that moment, I turned. I know she did because I heard her paws thud after me. My heart was pounding. Luckily, the door was unlocked. I ran inside and slammed it shut. Leaning on the door, I breathed deep, hard, and heavy, then look inside the living room. My parents and older brother are staring at me. I tell them to look outside. They do, and she's stalking our yard. We all watch her from safety of our window. She was a very beautiful creature, but I never want to be that close to one in the wild again. I've had 2 other close encounters with mountain lions, but that was the closest and scariest, and it was also the only encounter where I was alone. That is so scary. I don't know what I would do if like I saw a mountain lion. That is crazy. I'm so glad that you're safe though and you didn't get hurt. Not technically Halloween night, but a few days before Halloween. I was 17 to 18 at the time, and there usually isn't much to do in our town at that age except go to this old abandoned factory that we used to go to all the time to explore and pretty much kill time. Well, me and a couple buddies decided to go, and for once it was still kind of light out when we went. We did the usual cross the road into the bushes and then make a beeline to the first building. Well, this day it smelled like absolute death inside, and we all commented about it and continued being a bunch of dudes climbing on things, breaking bottles, being loud, etc. Then out of nowhere we started hearing loud bangs and almost whimper-like sounds, so we shut up and we start listening and go towards the noise. We all rounded a corner and found a homeless guy on the ground with terrible injuries to his legs, and we immediately tried to help him, and he kept asking us if it's gone or if it's still around, and we immediately called 911. And I took off my belt to apply pressure. His legs looked like they went through a meat grinder, and that's all I can describe. We figured rescue would have a hell of a time getting to where we were at, so we all decided to scoop him up and carry him out to the road. In a panic, in the struggle of carrying this big guy, I happened to look behind us, and up to my right, I see the largest hairy black creature standing in the doorway on 2 feet, and the sun just hitting it right. We don't have bears where I'm located, and the only way I can describe it is if it was Bigfoot, but I don't believe in Bigfoot living in a suburb large city. Never knew whatever happened to the guy, but police never said anything or asked us any questions. Now, someone asked if OP told the man what they saw or his friends, and they replied, "Oh, for sure. I told my buddies. They didn't know what to think of that situation. We still talk about it to this day." Yeah, that's a pretty crazy story, to be honest with you. I don't know that, like, at least you guys saved that man, because who knows what could have happened. When I was 17, I lived with my friend and her family, who pretty much took me in and let me stay there in exchange for babysitting. Well, my friend, her 8-year-old little cousin, and little cousin's best friend, who was also 8, went walking to get some face makeup for Halloween. And to get to the Walgreens, they had to cross a major street. They didn't take the crosswalk, instead they jaywalked. Well, the car in the lane closest to them stopped, but her cousin and little friend went ahead, and the very next lane the car didn't stop. Her cousin flew, I think, 17 feet. Ruptured her spleen, concussion, tons of road rash, and she had to stay in the hospital for a couple of weeks. Her best friend got it way worse. She was put in a coma because of brain swelling and trauma from the accident. That was an awful Halloween. Both girls are fine and have kids of their own now. If that honestly doesn't teach, like, any kids in general not to jaywalk, like, that is insane. I'm so glad the girls are, they're okay now and living their best life. But that is awful. Last year I was dog sitting for my parents while they were on holiday. They live in a very rural countryside village in an old barn conversion, and I hate staying there by myself. So about 10 days into house sitting, I woke up at 4 a.m. and I could hear something downstairs. Thinking I had somehow gone to bed and left the TV on, I went down to the lounge, but the TV was off. Very confused at this point, I wandered into the hall looking for the source of the sound. Both the dogs were sat very alertly outside the office door. Then I saw the light that was coming from behind the office door. I have absolutely no explanation for what happened that night. The computer in the office is my brother's, and he had been sailing to Europe for months at this point, and his computer was always password protected. However, on this night, the computer was on, unlocked, and the noise I could hear was a YouTube video about Soviet experiments of dog head transplants. I worked from home the next day as I was scared that I would come home and find my dog's heads had been switched. Edit, the commenter is correct. It was Soviet experiments, not Nazi. I was too scared to Google it again. That would have been real. Soviet experiments with dogs. Yeah. Somebody said the Nazis did worse things. That is so creepy. Do you think somebody hacked the computer though? I feel like somebody could have definitely hacked the computer, and it might be best to kind of maybe take it to the police and have them search for any like IP addresses or something, cuz like that is scary. I don't know how I would feel about that. I don't know. That is not cool. I was working as a bartender at a hotel that a flight attendant was unalived in room 354 about a year before the incident. Anyhow, it was close to closing time when the MOD was a very small woman comes into the bar and tells me that she needed my help. It seems the fire panel is showing on the alarm room 354, which had been somewhat cleaned and left vacant since the unaliving. So the two of us go to the elevator and start heading down the long-shaped corridor. As we round the corner, we can see papers that have been shoved under the door from inside the room with "Help Me" written on them. So the manager puts her master key in the lock and opens the door to pitch black. In the room we hear, "Thank you. You have finally come." We both instinctively jump back and then see one of our maintenance workers stroll out of the door. It seems maintenance had been using the room for storage, and once he went inside the door, the knob was broken off on the inside. There were no lights or phone in the room, so he held his lighter up to the fire alarm. Edit, for more information on the other unaliving, Google search Nancy Ludwig. Ooh. I think, you know what, we're going to do a separate episode, like maybe like a Yap episode about that specific story. So that way we can get all the details of what it is. But she said, but OP said that the name is Nancy Ludwig. So if you want to look it up yourself on Google, you can. But we're definitely going to find that story, and we're definitely going to talk about it. When I was a senior in high school, a bunch of my friends and I used to drive into the hills to drink and get away from our parents. I was the designated driver one night and drove back 4 of my friends. 2 of the girls were really drunk and started puking, so we pulled over in a park. Both of the girls started puking outside my car doors, and then this pickup truck rolls up behind us and had its high beams on. I thought it was the cops and was just waiting for them to bust us, but the person in the car just stayed there. Eventually, we closed the doors and drove away. The pickup followed us. I started driving faster and through a neighborhood I knew really well, taking every turn and starting to speed up. Then the pickup kept following us. Eventually, my friends needed to puke again, and we pulled over. The pickup stopped behind us and again just kept its lights on us. I looked through my rearview mirror and saw an older white guy with a beard. He started reaching for something in his glove compartment. At that point, I freaked out and told my friend to pull my other friends in the car and floored it. We took a couple of turns and lost the guy. We stayed in the driveway of a random person for like 15 minutes and then decided it was safe. We turned back onto the main street, and the pickup truck was waiting for us. I drove as fast as I could down the main street, and the pickup kept following us. Eventually, at the bottom of a hill, there was a massive accident and a bunch of police cars and fire trucks. I started to slow down like I was going to pull over towards the police. The pickup overtook us, ran a red light in front of the cops, and I never saw him again. I have no idea who the guy was or what he wanted, but it was terrifying. That, I think, is the craziest and creepy story that we have read so far, besides when the girl was in the car and then she leaned, besides the girl who picked up like the random man in her car and he had like some bag, and then she was able to get him out of the car, and then I don't know if you guys remember that story, and then like she took the bag to the police and they told her that it had like a butcher knife in it. That is so scary. But that is going to be our last story for the night, and I am so sad this is our last Halloween episode for the year, but we're going to come back next year and we're going to have so much fun again, and we're going to dress up, new costumes, new characters, And like I said, if you guys have any costumes, please show me your costumes. I would love to see them. I would love to repost all of your Halloween costumes on our Instagram stories. I think that would be so much fun. And my costume today, if you don't watch anime, this is Riruka from Bleach. She is an anime character, and that's who I chose today. So that's who I am, and her little bunny hat. So I think we did good. I think she's cute. You know, I honestly I wanted to dye my hair to like match the color of her hair, but I didn't have time to dye it a little bit darker. So I just kind of left it with the light pink, but it still doesn't look bad. I mean, you can kind of still tell who I am. So it's really not that big of a deal, but thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.